Alrighty, race fans, welcome to another edition of the Workbench. Well, it's a big day at the shop. We've got a new product to introduce, and that is the new Viper V3 chassis. And I'm telling you, I am so excited about this. I about can't stand it. It's been, at least a year or more in development, and we can get into why it takes so long to get stuff done. But you all know that Dan and I collaborate on a lot of stuff, and maybe I'm the engineer to boot and all this. I don't know. I just kind of get stuff done, and it works. He does stuff, I do stuff, and it's great. So we'll get into this. We'll have some videos edited in here that start with the original samples coming out of the mold, and we'll go through till the stuff came in the door here last week. So here we are in the middle of April, about mid-April, so you'll get a feel for that. And then once we look at all that, we will get into looking closely at the parts and what it does. And I think you're going to be excited. I'm excited. I about can't stand it. I can't wait to get this stuff on the market. Man, this stuff's great. You'll love it. Alrighty, to start the discussion here, you'll see that I have trays. I use trays for everything. I just get a project. If it's a repair thing, guy sends me some cars, I stick them on a tray, and then it goes over there. And then, projects. This is my V3 project tray for at least finished test articles. Over here is a tackle box that's got some stuff in it. We'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, V3 is basically a competitive answer to what is currently in the high performance marketplace, and that is the Wizard Fusion and the RPM's Ghost Cat. They're nice cars. They do some good stuff. And with me and Dan, we're so busy with just the normal course of business that to try to stop what we're doing and develop a whole new product at the expense of normal business just didn't make sense. So it took a while. I've been having this idea for well over 2 years to do something, and there's all kinds of things that you see currently in our product line that are an offshoot of this final endeavor here. One of the things is the N-bell to upgrade our electrical system. Motor magnets, and then of course the new traction magnets that are in V3. All these things it just takes a while to get it done. We don't have staffs of people. You've got to do all the normal course of stuff while you're still doing product development. The big thing with the new magnets that puts us kind of now in parity with Fusion and Ghost Cat are the diffused traction magnets. Okay, it's a much larger field, and you get a wider handling path in corners. This is really what's going on with this diffused field. The narrow field, like what was in V1 and as well as BSRT, is much narrower, and yeah, it can be kind of stronger, but you just at the margin, especially in tight turns, the car will, because we don't have a differential, it'll get out of the path of the rail and then just boom, you're off. So that's the big thing. So it was impossible to get that design in a V1 chassis. So I knew we had to do a completely new chassis. So then it's like, all right, I'm going to do some things that I've always wanted to do, maybe make some improvements in this and that. So in kind of a summary, I took the mindset with developing V3 that we are kind of leveraging the heritage of V1, Super G Plus, all of that, but take it to another level. And we could do that now that I've got to redesign the back end of this car to handle these magnets. So right off the bat, let's just get something straight. The intent of this car is not to make V1 obsolete. V1 is not going away. Right? Just isn't. It has a big following, a big market share. It does a lot of things really well. This particular car intent is to be highly competitive in spec racer and ceramic superstock. It'll probably do really good in compression molded. We've got some examples for the CMPM class here. I'm pretty happy that they'll do good. But initially, it's this very popular spec racer and ceramic class cars for Hopra, and well as the club racing. So, I mean, the average hobbyist will love it or whatever, but V1 is not going away. Listen to the words coming out of my mouth. V1 is not going away. All right, another thing that I do is I have a lot of fishing tackle boxes around here that stuff is in. Sometimes parts, in this particular case, developmental items. Space is a premium, so I have all kinds of crazy things to store stuff. So this was the box that I used to basically keep my first kind of handmade test articles before we actually had production parts. So how do I test? Well, I basically took V1 chassis and kind of hacked them up and glued things in and did this and tried this idea and that idea. You can see all these different things here that we did. So one thing I knew, I wanted to make a third guide pin hole. So I'd hack the chassis up and then glue a guide pin in about where I wanted it. Different handmade magnets that I tried and would have to hack up the magnet box in a Viper and glue them in with Black Max. But we built some test articles and really got some good results. So I knew I was on the right track with this. So this is the first step in development, is you got to have some way to test stuff, right? Then after that, we do three-dimensionally printed chassis to test all that. Once we then go and make the modifications in our model, this is what we do. And each one of these things is a very high-grade 3D printed part, down to about 1/1000th, I think the layers are. I forgot what they call that, but they're really, really precise. So then I can take and fit parts into this and come up with a running car. Okay. The problem with 3D printing, our little cars are really, really fast, and this material is not robust. Okay, it is only good for fitting parts. So this particular example, the bumper broke off. There may be some other little problems, but this one's taken apart. It does have the proper magnets, motor magnets in it, and I could, put in our new traction magnets and then at least run it around the track somewhat softly and then determine, am I on the right track or not? And once I get all of that worked out, then you can go have an injection mold made. That's another hacked up chassis there. Broken chassis, get a little froggy and, really pushing stuff and, things break. The problem is you can't glue this stuff back together. Even Black Max won't hold the stuff back together. So 3D printing is your friend to a point. It'll prove things, but you can't build a HO slot car out of it. It just, the dynamic forces are just too great. Here's a clip that broke. But, this gets expensive real quick. This is not for the light of wallet. Because every one of these things that breaks, that was like $100 part right there. So, but you have to do this to test everything, to get proof of concept. So, with that, let's move forward with looking at actual production cards. Alrighty, race fans. Well, what you have here, right, this is the world's first assembled V3 chassis. Okay, this little stack of junk here, that's pre-production samples. Actually, the first samples to come out of the mold. So they do this, and you check stuff to make sure things are correct in that. And indeed, there's a few little things here and there that we're trying to work out. But anyway, this is the first run. This is Spec Racer. $100, 110, that is really good. That is really good. Alright, let's keep going. So, there we have it. World's first run of the V-3 chassis, 6 ohm with the new motor magnets, new traction magnets. These have got like 325 fronts, 418 albino rears. Pretty good handling little car. And this is just basically just pulling parts, not sorting anything. It's a Rondinella 6 ohm armature in it, so just we haven't even begun to figure out all the little fine-tuning tricks that will make this thing really a game changer. But right out of the box, the first production samples, a couple little things, you know, they got to be cleaned up here and there, but you know, it didn't take nothing. Snap the car together, get it to work.
Several days later.
Alrighty, race fans, well, we're back with another installation on our V3 project. We are now, this is February 25th. So it takes a while to get things done. There was Chinese New Year's in the middle of all this. Everything over there shut down. So they finally get back to work, do some things. So we're on the third sample of chassis. They call them T samples or trials. And the first two were to correct small problems in the mold of parts, and then this particular edition is hopefully the final thing where they finally polish all the parts, all the sides, everything, so it all looks good, nice and pretty and acceptable parts for sale. So it looks like, in my opinion, like they've done a pretty good job on that. Look down here with my magnifier on a couple different things, and I think they've done a really good job. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Looks really good. But anyway, we'll send these off to Dan, and we have another tester that will evaluate these things. So hopefully nothing changed with between T2 and T3. So if everybody is in agreement on these things, then we'll lock it down and we will be able to do production parts.
A little while later.
Alright, race fans, we're going to do a little run of the hopefully final pre-production samples. This is the T3 sample in that, and got it all built up, spec racer trim. I think we got 310 fronts on it, and super tires, B compound, 416s on the back. We have a Rondo Wine 17 degree advanced in it, 6 ohm, 723 gear set. So let's see what we can do here.
A few moments later.
Alright, got the power on, 18 volts. I'd say it's good. Let's put a body on it. Maybe we can see it a little better. Driving it kind of hard. Well, it's almost like the car's too fast for the track, which is kind of crazy. It's fast. So anyway, there you go. T3 samples running, looks pretty good to me. And we'll see what the other guys got to say about it. Alrighty, race fans, welcome to another edition of the Workbench and a follow-on to all the other videos that we've done on V3. What we're looking at here is a very unusual unboxing video. Not sure we've ever done anything like this in the slot car world, but getting ready to do it. These are the production parts for the V3 that just rolled in the door. So we've got the bulkheads, we've got clips, and we've got chassis. So we'll kind of sort some of this stuff out. We'll get Dan sent his portion of these things, and well, hopefully this will be the start of a new era. All right, we'll continue on.
Later that night.
Alrighty, race fans, well, we decided to put some cars together, and what we have here are cars number 1, cars number 2, and cars number 3. These are the first saleable production chassis to be assembled. Dan out at Viper hasn't received the chassis yet, but I got busy here tonight just to check everything out and put some together. It's kind of the V3 version of a V-spec at this point. You have a 6 ohm unbalanced motor, Razor front end set, double flange rear hub, 723 gear set, medium PST tires. So these, I believe, are 310 O-rings on the front and 420 PST mediums on the rear. And ran them around, run real good. So probably what I'm going to do with these things is send them out to Dan here at some point to be sold on one of his Wednesday night auctions, and that's give you all a chance to own those. I don't need to own them because we got piles of chassis. This stuff has to live somewhere else. But anyway, these are the first 3 saleable chassis made out of production parts. All right, so I think one of the best ways to approach the differences between V3 and V1, and then perhaps some of the other cars in the marketplace, is to go about building some cars. Um, so we're going to build 3 cars, probably edit it for time constraints, and so we don't get too drawn out, but at least we'll go through 3 of them if you don't get it on the first go around. Some of these steps will go pretty quick, so you can kind of get it. Now, the first thing that I do on just about any car is to put the guide pin in. Now, my preference when I sell these chassis, when you buy the chassis kit, it'll be the chassis, timing bracket, magnet clip. I'm going to include the guide pin because some guys may or may not be adapted getting the pin in, and it's not that big of a deal. But I will say this, it goes better when you oil the guide pin before you put it in. So what I do is put like a little drop of oil right there, okay? And then I get kind of some nose pliers. All right. Set that thing down right like that. Get it lined up, and then 1, 2, 3. Now, not every chassis will it pop in 1, 2, 3, but this particular one did. Don't get it out here in outer space and try to, do all this. Things will get kind of hinky on you. And don't grab out here. Make sure your pliers are up kind of close when you do this. Okay, this is real important. And it's important that you oil the pin. What are the words coming out of my mouth? Oil the pin. Okay. Now, that one didn't pop into the third thing, but what I do now is I go back. I'm going to show you this. And pop it in the last time. Right? Be very careful. Do it very slowly, and it'll be okay. All right. Now, this particular pin for this is made rather specifically for this chassis. In development, I decided that the Viper pin, the shank, and that's the piece that's in between the 2 flanges, I think that measurement was 0.090, and it was really, really difficult to get the pin into the car. And these holes here, by the way, are the same size as the Viper V1. So the material may be a little stiffer. We've done some stuff, and it's just, it doesn't flex quite like the V1 in this last little bit. So I reduced the guide pin shank down to 0.85, and that is a specific line item. So, but in order to make it all easy, I intend to sell these with a guide pin in it, so you don't have to go through that. So that's the first thing, right? That's the first thing. And then the second thing is getting hangers in. And those just go in real easy. Now I know this is probably not going to show up very good on the camera, but you can hear them click in. It's a bit of a technique, but All right, so got that in. So some people may put an axle in at this point. I kind of mix it up depending on what I'm doing, what I'm building. I might put them in after I get the motor box in, but for now, we'll just go ahead and slide the front axle in. And just a little bit of side play. And we still got the 1.5-inch wheelbase and the 1.6 on this. We don't have any shorter or longer wheelbases for this because 1.5 is really kind of the de facto standard for racers. All right, so we're making progress. Now, while we're here, let's talk about some of the features that we changed, improved, modified for V3 over V1. To start off, the motor box in here, all that's about the same. I don't think we changed any dimensions at all in there. All that's relatively the same. We still got, the Lexan body post on the outside, and then we have a USA feature relief on the side. That's more of a taking material out, a lightning feature, because one of my big things was to try to figure out how to take weight out of the chassis. The V1, these lightning holes are round here. These are oval. We decided, hey, we can do something different here. We can take a little bit more material out there. I've strengthened the front bumper. I've made this piece here a little bit more robust relative to V1, and so far on the test articles, that's proven to be pretty good. A very important feature is there's now an in-bell support stud or shelf or whatever you want to call it, because every now and then you take a V1 or any of the other similar types of platforms, and if you crashed hard in a certain way, the end bell might get pushed down a little bit in the car and kind of hang out the bottom. And if you're racing and you don't know that and you get marshaled back on, the car will still run, but it won't handle very well. So you've got to, so this will prevent anything like that from happening anymore. We've got that little feature in there now. That's something I actually picked up from the Super 7 when I designed it, because I had a way to hold the front of the motor in a Super 7. So we did that, and it's like, hey, we're going to carry that over to V3. That's going to work good. All right, then we get to the back of the car where all the magic happens with the new magnets. So because the magnets are designed differently. All right, so looking at the back end of the car where all the new magic's happening, in the magnet box area, all that's been completely redesigned because we have this new block style magnet for us. It may look similar to the Fusion magnet or the Ghost Cat magnet, but it is slightly different in size. So this does not interchange with those two chassis. I think the RPM's magnet and the Fusion magnet, those can be used interchangeable. These are not. Okay, they're not. So it's a bit proprietary to this design. Get to mounting all these in a minute, but then the clip has a little thing that goes in the side and holds that in, if you can see that. See? All right. So I wanted to make the back of the chassis a little stiffer than V1, so we changed this back in here. This is more of a gusset now, and it's relieved in more, so you can kind of get your pinion tool in to adjust the pinion a little easier. All right, so that's one thing. The back of the chassis has been scalloped off a little bit. We've reduced material out of here, taken off the top, because it just having material up high didn't do anything for it. The back with this has been raised up here in the middle a little bit to take a little bit of material out of that. That's doesn't do anything to strength or reliability at all. And these through features that you see on a magnet box of a V1, I took and skimmed those over. It's still there, but there's a little bit of plastic that's now on that, and that I think helps stiffen up this back end a little bit. So it's a little stiffer. I have always felt that the V1 was a little bit soft in that area. I've not had any complaints about it, but that's just the way I felt. So we're here, we're doing it. I'm going to stiffen this back up, and it seems like that indeed has worked. So I'm very, very pleased with all of that. Also, we've differentiated the new bulkheads. We've created some different features here. The bulkheads between V1 and V3 could be used interchangeably. There's no real difference out here where things contact. We just made a different cosmetic feature in here. So that's a little different. And the magnet clip, that's also a little bit different too in the way it holds the magnets in. Now we've done some things. We've increased the width of this here to kind of help hold the motor magnets in a little bit better in a crash. Now, what I'm about to say, you need to pay attention. Because we widen this out, it stiffens this clip up a little bit. It doesn't bend as quite as easily as V1. So when you go to put this clip on the car, you need to be really, really careful and very deliberate, because if you break the clip, there are no replacements as of today. Because when the mold is shot, you get a chassis, you get a bracket, and a clip all in one thing. So there's just no extra parts. So I'm going to show you how to, because I can't figure this out. Even on V1, people break clips all the time. I can't figure out what you guys do, how far you bend them and splay them out and do whatever to break a clip. I've never broken a clip, ever. In thousands and thousands of cars I've put together. I can't figure out how this is done. I just don't. But we'll address that when we get down to that here in a minute. So let's get a car put together. Get ourselves an end bell and get a bracket. Now it helps to set the end bell in the timing position that you want. So for these particular, we're just going, I think we're going to call them spec 3s, I think is what we're going to call them, as opposed to the V spec is a V1. So we're just going to call it a spec 3. So that's kind of what we're building here. All right, white on the right. All right, and then let's see. 10,000s. Let's see if 10,000s works. You need to put probably about 10,000s on the back. We use a standard bushing. If you decide to use the double flanged bushing, I don't think you got to use a spacer. Okay. So now we set this in the chassis a little bit forward, okay, and then you kind of get the back end down a little bit so the bushing doesn't fall off. Now, this is the thing that a lot of people have a lot of problems with. So I've got it sitting ready to push in. You don't want to just go wham. You do, you'll shear the bunny ears off. I had a customer call me here last week, and he spent an inordinate amount of time, I mean maybe an hour or two, trying to get his car together, and ruined at least 2, maybe 3 end bells trying to get this next stage. And this is not difficult. The whole idea is to get something to go down in here between the end bell and the hanger and push the hanger forward. I have this handy little homemade tool, okay, that will basically straddle the bunny ear while you pry it forward. Now, I just get it started just like that. I don't try to move it any farther. Just get one started. Go over to the other side. Okay. Get it started. And now that they're both started, like that, boom. Now, a lot of times the back end won't seat in, so then you kind of Move your thumb back there, make sure it's all seated, look at it, and then I'll get my nose pliers and I'll check fore and aft. If you have too much space, you won't be able to move it. So being that I pre-positioned my end bell in full advanced, that looks good. Maybe we'll move that down there on that side, just get that. All right. The next thing here that will help you get this clip on and probably prevent breakage is oil that little shelf where those clips have to go over. Okay, we're going to build the car in high downforce. So at this point, it may be, if you're fiddly fingers like I am sometimes, let's just take and put a black mark on the outside of these magnets. All right, and that's going to tell us which side's up, because we'll pull that off and put that in like that. But this way, at least if they're marked and one flops out, you'll know which way it goes up. So now we're ready to get the clip on. Okay, so I kind of preload that, and see here again, it flopped out on me, right? Okay, so I don't try to splay this clip out much, but I get it started on one side. Reset because I'm right-handed. I like the right side down. It's hard to, there we go. So we kind of get that started in there. It doesn't have to be perfectly seated, but I kind of hold it a little bit and then I press down on top. I press down. I don't try to grab this and bend it out and pull it down. I try to push straight down, and then that will force the clip to only bend as much as possible. Okay? Now at this point, I'll kind of massage the car around and feel it and look and make sure everything is seated right, the magnets are correct, look at the placement of the end bell relative to the bulkhead. So it's like, okay, man, we are good to go. We might give it another little, yep. So that's one down. All right, let's run this again. And I have to have my visors on to see. My eyes are not that good anymore. Get our 10,000ths. Get our bushing. Magnets. Okay. Set my timing. Set it in. Bushing's in, right where it needs to be. It's not going to fall out. Start the first side. Start the second side, and then bam, ready to go. Just that quick. Okay. Oil that up. Get me a clip. Get that thing started. Bam, clips on, just like that. Okay, check it. Give a little wiggle, you know, whatever. Look at it real good. Looks good. There's 2. And 3. I tell you what, you know, you sit down, you build 30 of these things, you tend to learn a few things about it. There's not a whole lot different about this than V1, but the biggest takeaway is oil the guide pin so it goes in easy, and then, you know, put a little bit of oil over that feature above the magnet box so the clip goes on a little easier. You don't fight it. Okay. All right. So we're kind of seated at an angle, just a little bit. Okay. The bushing's not going to fall out. You know, start them, move them forward. See, it started. That one snaps in. Okay. You got to look, make sure you're completely seated down there. This is an important thing that I do on about all of them because every now and then it seems like maybe something's mildly misaligned somewhere, and you do that, and then the motor frees up instantly. Something's just in a slight bind or whatever that's not it's not visual, and it if that thing moves, then you know you're not going to have a problem. Because if you crank it up and that motor's not free fore and aft, you'll start burning up stuff. Boom, like that. Okay. All right, so we're more than halfway home. So we've got 3 chassis here. Real quick, you can see how quick a lot of this stuff goes together. And we will move now to probably the next step will be putting on the pickup shoes and then getting some back axles in the car. All right, so on this particular step, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to get the springs in, we're going to get the pickup shoes on, and put on the pinion gear. That seems to be kind of a logical thing to do. So I have fumble fingers, and springs are small, so I have to have tweezers. All right. Now, these particular springs, these HCS springs, are silver-plated beryllium copper. I believe the Vipers, those are steel, so if you get them too close, they'll suck into the magnets of the car. Now, I'm using the HCS low profile, high conductive pickup shoes, and I've made a point. These shoes these are a little softer than a standard Viper shoe, so they bend a little easier. However, when they're on the car, if you can get them on and not bend them, they're absolutely flat. So, just like a V1, you put it through the front there, and then I get my tweezer and I push down right there. I do not touch this with any pressure. Okay, I don't touch it with any pressure. Fish it through, and just have your finger kind of hold it so it doesn't move off the stud up front, and then bam, pop that in. Boom, 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 boom. See, easy enough. Load my pinion on, push it on all the way, and we'll come back and reset that after we get a back axle in it. I mean, I like the HCS springs for this stuff simply because they're non-magnetic. The steel springs, I mean, they get stuck to everything. It kind of bothers me, but that's just me. Other people build things the way they want to build them. Okay, that's 2. Oh, gotta get our pinion gear on. Look at that. All this is pretty much just standard assembly that you would have on any in-belt style car. Nothing much different here. All right, so we got that. Put these back in their place. Get our pinion. Okay, so now we can actually effectively test the car on a 9-volt and kind of see what we're doing here. I give it a little oil there, a little oil there. I tell you what, this recess back here on the clip that we put on V1, that was one of Dan Cronin's ideas, and I'll tell you what, it's one of the best little simple modifications that we could have done, because it makes oiling these cars so much easier. The BSRT clip goes all the way across, so if you want to do that operation, you got to come generally a lot from the bottom. There was just no easy way to do that, and that really is a time saver there. That works pretty good. Pretty good. Yep, so about as expected. All right, we're nearly done, so let's move to assembling some back axles and getting those in the car. Okay, since we build so many cars, um, you know, the presses are fine if you're doing onesie, twosie kind of stuff, but if you got even, you know, 3 or 4 cars to do, I get my press out and do this. Now, this particular press is, they're not anything special. It's been modified a few little ways, but do not ask me where I got this. I can't remember. It's been too many years ago. All right, I can't remember. So just don't ask. You see it, find it on your own, do with it what you like. But you know, I don't sell these. They last a long time, so it's not like it's anything I got to make money on. You know, I modified, you know, made a little piece to kind of hold the scale engineering uh, collet in there for the gears or whatever. So you know, that kind of works. But for production, this is really a time saver. All right, so we've got that done. Then we're going to put one hub on the axle. We're not going to put both of them on yet. I'll show you why. Get one on. Get 2 on. Get 3 on. All right, so we're nearly there. Now, I change pushers at this point because this particular one is indented. Okay, so it keeps the axle centered, right? I don't want to use that when I flip this thing over to put the second one on, because if I do that with this indentation, that axle will move up off the center of that hub. So I've got a workaround, and that's basically this piece here I made that's just relatively flat that goes in, right? So with any particular brand of gear, your axle space will be different because gears are made differently. I think with a Viper gear, you may be around 20 to 23. For this particular exercise, I'm using the HCS 23 tooth crown gear. It's Delrin injection mold. It's the same gear that goes in Super 7. Right, really robust. Has had a good good life expectancy, good reviews, whatever. All right, so I put 10,000s on this one. All right, so then we'll pop it in, and I'll look and I'll kind of feel. There's a little bit of perceptible side play. That's about what we want. Okay, so all right, looks good. Let's lock it down. All right, then I make sure that I'm relatively centered, and it looks like it's off a touch. Okay, see that? So there's a fix for that. I'll pull it back. Just a scooch. Okay, see how that did. Yep, that's got it about right. So then, knowing that, I'll go over with these here, line them up, get it kind of snug, and then scooch. Just a bump, a little bit. We may have to go back the other way, we'll see. And then 2, at this stage, before I get that other wheel on, I listen to that, because if the mesh is wrong and I've got to do something, I can take this back out and change the spacing and fix it before I lock it all down with the hub. So, yep, looks good. I'm telling you what, a 9-volt battery is your friend. Right, so spacing looks pretty fair. Let's see, maybe I'll move. I don't want to touch there. Let's see where we're at. See, that one's on the end. It needs to come up. So the fact that this has got a relief now makes it a lot easier to get your tool in and grab that pinion and push it up where you want it. Okay. So it serves a couple of different, it actually takes weight out of the car, and because we redesigned it on a triangle here, as opposed to that U that was on a V1, this gusset actually does help increase stiffness. All right, we're about ready to wrap this up. Getting pretty close, get some tires on it. Now, because of the redesign of the magnet package and some of the chassis bits or whatever, the car actually can run a lot lower tire. Okay, the magnets in a V1 or V3, they are dead nuts flush with the bottom of the chassis. When V1, they kind of hung down a couple thousandths or whatever, and they would wear in, and then you'd maybe drop it a little bit, change your tire size. This here, it's all a solid plane. It's just as flat can be flat. Which, if you're really on your game on setup, that gives you a really good setup window to sit there and look at. You're not, I don't know, getting a false positive because a magnet's hanging down too far or whatever. The V specs, when I would build them, I would put 340 fronts on them and 432 rears. This car now can take a 325 front and about I'm putting 428s on them. You could probably get by with 424s. These are medium compound tires. If you're building a true spec racer and you're using like albinos or one of the other firm tires, you may be down in the 416 to 420 range on that, and maybe a slightly smaller front. It just depends, for those pro setups. But this here, I mean, the whole car's dropped a little bit, but the car's flat on the bottom. We're not having to adjust for hang down magnets. Okay, so 325 fronts. And then the 428 rears. Okay, so the rears, we're putting 428s on them. Now, a lot of times when you're folding these tires over the hubs, that flange, they get kind of hung up. So a lot of times I'll take my fingernails and just kind of run around that and help seat it a little bit. Okay, because sometimes they get hung up on a flange and whatever, and this just kind of pushes the whole tire over to the outside flange a little bit. Right, it's got them, and then we'll put a little dab of oil. We've already oiled the motor, so we don't need none of that. Back down here on the back. Okay, final run in. You can hear the end bell breaking in there a little bit. So at this point, if you got a little break-in box or whatever, you stick it on a break-in box for a little bit. You don't have to really run it at, a certain voltage for a certain time. You just listen to it till the motor comes up. I wouldn't just nail it at 18 volts. You may want to do 9 or 10 volts for a couple of minutes just to hear it to where it picks up speed a little bit. And after that, stick it on the track and run it. right, so you can tell a lot with a 9-volt. If a car is put together wrong and you've got a lot of the back axle's too tight, the motor's too tight, you won't get the rundown. Because, like, if you listen, you get rundown. If something's too tight, it's just like as soon as you pull it off, boom, it stops. Now, I got a break-in box, so I'll go over here and crank that up to about 12 volts. And I'm going to look at the amp draw. That's my final thing. Now, we got a 6 ohm car. About 1.8 amps, which ain't much at all. That's about right for 6 ohm car. Go to our next one. So this one's got a little bit of a problem somewhere in the gear train. I may have to go look at that as to why that doesn't sound right, and we're getting a touch more amp draw. So we'll try to sort that out. This motor is already turning a little more RPM, but as it breaks in a touch, you watch it come down a little bit. Now, any particular ohm rating armature and magnet package will kind of have its own sweet spot on that. You get, 2 ohm motors, level 10 magnets, you may be drawing a half an amp doing that. You just have to learn what that is, and as you're building multiple cars and you have an amp meter and you can look at it, you put this thing together and you go over there and you look at it and it's drawing, 0.4 amps. You got a problem, okay? You got a problem. That's too much amp draw with no load. It should be around, 0.2 to, maybe a quarter, 2.5, it just depends. If you increase the brush tension on your brushes, you put a tweaked end bell in it and you get a little more mechanical stuff going on there, it may draw a few more amps. Of course, you're going to get more speed. But you get 4/10 or a half an amp on a 6 ohm armature with, these, spec racer magnet packages, you got a problem. So anyway, so the final step will be track testing. Okay, so when I finish building things, and as such, these here are spec 3s ready to be track tested. Okay, I'll go through and run every one of them at least 5, maybe 10 laps to see if I can identify any problems, if they're happy. I don't have a track timer on it, but I've run the track so much I can kind of tell by sound what the car's doing or not doing. If it slows down, whatever. But everything that I build, I track test because I would want to own what I sell. I don't want to sell something that's not correct. So anyway, so we'll get to it here. Oh, nice car. Nicer car. And that's about like the first one. All right, so just as a final kind of parting thing here, this is basically a spec racer built off of a T3 sample. This is my notes in there, so I kind of know what's keep track. 6 ohm balanced armature, probably a Bodie's Bullet or a Rondo, something like that that's in there, 6 ohm. 723 pinned rear axle, albinos, end bell with helper springs, low profile shoes. probably 310 on the front, 416s on the rear, maybe somewhere in that area. Haha, it rips. So I was trying to, push it as hard as I could, and indeed it did come off. But you can see the difference in speed between, a Spec 3 and then a full-on Spec Racer. I wouldn't say night and day, but there is obviously a lot of difference. But you're probably dealing with, a cost factor of maybe 3 times between what one of those is going to cost and what one of these is going to cost. But, once I got this thing on the track and, looked at whatever else is going on, even relative to current V1 products, is I know I have a winner. That's kind of a bold statement, but it's a winner. So it's up to you guys to figure out what tuning things that you need to do for your applications. I like the helper spring idea that we have in the new N-Bell. You have to install those yourself. It's a magnet traction pickup shoe spring, and once the car is all together, the final thing that I do is put a little super glue to kind of hold it into place, and you do get a lot of speed out of it. It's quite phenomenal. So I guess that really about covers it. I mean, we've talked about all the features of the chassis, how to go through building one, a couple of little bitty things that you should do. Oil the guide pin before you stick it in. Make sure you oil that part of the chassis on top of the magnet box before you put the clip in. Don't try to splay that clip way out. Here again, there are no extra clips to be had at this point in the game. So if you break a clip and you need one, you're going to have to buy a whole nother chassis kit. All right, that's just the way it is today. But if you have comments you have serious questions, just send me an email. I'm not going to do this stuff, hey, comments below or whatever, and click this link and however they do all this stuff. I stay real busy. I don't go trolling my own YouTube channel to figure out what people are writing about stuff. I may check them now and then, but it's not like something I do every day, 3 times a day or whatever. So if you got serious questions, send me an email. And if it's even more serious, call me on the phone. I'll answer the phone. That's just, I'm kind of old school in that regard, and we can communicate a lot better that way. But it's real exciting, and it's been a long road. All right, guys, thank you.